All right, I'll get us started then. Guys, welcome back to Best of Belfast, the podcast that celebrates Northern Ireland and the incredible people in it. Joined today, guys, thank you very much for joining us, the Spence brothers, Roy and Noel. Really appreciate you being here.
Aye, great.
You come recommended.
Oh, what? That's worrying for a start.
It is indeed.
These guys are filmmakers. They've been in the film game for a long time. We've got producer Rosca in the producer chair. We're joined by Mark today as well. These guys will be jumping in. Daniel there, the guy on the right, he really wants to become a filmmaker. So we were very excited to have the chance to sit down with you guys today. And he's going to be making furious notes, scribbling away.
It's a noble ambition.
Ready?
Yeah.
Great.
So how did you guys get into it?
That's the most strange thing of all. I mean, we're the most unlikely people to have been interested in films and cinema because we're two country boys brought up in the country and no background of film going or film interest. But both Roy and I can trace it back to one particular event. 1952, my mother took us to the Ritz in Belfast to see Abbott and Costello meet Jack and the Beanstalk, you know, and this had such a profound influence on us and effect on us, you know, a marvellous big world of a huge big cinema and a screen and a big giant and colour and fantasy and magic. We were hooked from that moment on. I think you'll agree, Roy.
Oh, yeah. There's no history of filmmaking or of the disease in the family at all. No. You know, but I really do believe that filmmaking, cinema is really just a development from theatre. But I really do believe that the influences on you stem away back to primeval times. I think that the filmmakers of today have got the genes from the actual cavemen who were interested in the flames in the cave and the shadows in the wall, you know, and the caveman who beat a hollow log with a bone. From him came the musicians of today, and I think, you know, it all stems right back. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
And I think our forebears, millions or hundreds of years, or thousands of years ago, would have been the ones who were interested in the cave drawings and the shadows in the wall. I think the cinema is just really an extension of that.
It's interesting, like a mentor of mine was chatting to me the other day and he was saying, you know, if you were born, you know, thousands of years ago, if you were born in medieval or like even before them caveman times, like you'd be the wee caveman sitting around the fire chatting to everybody.
Interviewing.
It's just a modern expression.
Yes,
Because storytelling has always been a part of who we are, particularly on this island. You talk about a nation of storytellers, like it's interesting.
Yeah,
So
I think it comes right down.
1952, but I can develop it further because we were at a small two-teacher primary school and the Ulster Bank, I think it was called the Ulster Bank in those days, they sent some guy round.
So it was Ulster Savings.
Ulster Savings, yes, Ulster Savings. They sent some guy out with a projector into the primary schools to promote the bank, the savings scheme to save, get children to save. And he had a projector which he set up and he set a screen up. This is all new to us. And he put on these 16mm cut down Abbott and Costello comedies. And the curtains were pulled and the room was dark. And we saw the projector starting up and the film on the screen. And this was us absolutely enslaved to projecting and films and showing pictures. You know, I was between the Abbott and Costello, which was the original thing, and then this guy coming around and showing films at home, you know, or at school it was. I mean, you didn't have to go into a big cinema in Belfast. You could see these in your own home. So it was a short step from that to getting a little Bakelite battery lamp type projector, you know, to show on the wall, and things went from there. At a remarkable rate, you know, because we went from that then to hand-operated 9.5 projector. There's always projectors and screens and stuff. And then we sort of went our separate ways. To some extent, Roy became the creative one, making films, and I called an exhibitor, and Roy calls it an exhibitionist. You know?
I don't know which is worse.
which is worse. I'll settle for exhibitor, you know, but I was more interested in the showmanship, you know. Yeah. Although obviously I helped Roy along with the making of the films, but it's interesting how the two things went parallel and were complementary. You know, my showing of films, when Roy had his films was made, we were able to have its premiere, if that's not too grand a word, in the cinema, you know, which I had opened, you know, back in 1974. You know.
It's sad to think that young people nowadays can't experience that because they're surrounded with moving pictures on their phone, on their watches even, you know, everywhere you look are moving pictures. And I just think there's the same thrill with that because it's so common a moving picture now. It's, even looking around here, there's probably moving pictures all around us where we are. Whereas in those days, it wasn't about. To see a moving picture in a darkened hall was absolute magic. In fact, the old guy who brought the projector out for Ulster Savings, he hadn't even got a screen. He got a map of the world down
That's right,
out of the
remember
store,
that?
turned it the wrong
the
way
back way,
around,
remember
projected
that,
in the
yeah,
back of the
yeah.
map. You know, it was as crude as that. The magic was there.
Yeah.
I mean, even before that, we were getting little orange reflectors from the mud guard of a bike, a little reflector, and putting a battery lamp on and shining through it, you know, just to get a picture, an orange picture on the wall. There's always that sort of fascination with projecting pictures. I don't know, I couldn't explain it, you know.
And then we used to go down to the cinema in Cumber, the old cinema, down the back of it, where they're throwing out snips from the film, you know, little strips, and we'd hold them up and see a picture.
Wow.
To see that picture, the magic of that, to see a little picture, you know.
That is magic.
Oh, it is magic.
This is maybe a strange thing to say, but I remember chatting to some sort of a historian guy who was really into evolution and, you know, how humans have changed over time. And he was saying that in ancient cultures, there was a real appreciation of the sacred. Mm-hmm. And what he meant by that was something really simple. Like if you found a bee's nest, if you found honey, it was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And it was a really special moment. It was sacred for the whole tribe or the village to enjoy this honey. Whereas nowadays, you can have honey for your breakfast if you want. You can have honey every single meal of the day if you want. And that's what I was thinking about whenever you said we're surrounded by moving pictures anymore. Do you think we've kind of lost that, some of that magic or that sacredness around the screen?
I think things are far too accessible, you know, and
Interesting.
Roy and I both like things that you can hold. I mean, let me give you another example. Streaming or downloading would never please us. We need to have something in your hand that you can hold up to the light and look at, you know. It's a bit like Kindle. I mean, I'd rather have a book which you can hold in your hand.
And photographs too.
Photographs, the same sort of thing, yeah. I mean, everything's so temporary nowadays. It just, you get it instantly and you part with it instantly. Whereas when we wanted something, we had to save up for it and get it. And once you had it, what you were saying, it was sacred. You really treasured it. I mean, we still have, can you believe, we bought these projectors about 1953 or 54. These big plastic projectors. We still have them.
They're fetching big money nowadays, you know.
I bet.
We still have these, honestly, these little Bakelite things. You know, you probably don't even know the word Bakelite, do you? No.
Early form of plastic.
Early form of plastic, you know. Bakelite to us was, it was said, to use your word, sacred, you know, things. But, I mean, we like to own things and to have them physical and real, not up in the ether somewhere, you know. That's cloud, no, let's carry on.
Little projectors which cost about 3.11. So you don't know what that means, do you?
I don't have a clue what that means.
But it's just under 20p, 4 shillings, 20p.
Wow.
They cost about £500 now to buy. You know, because once something becomes rare, unobtainable, the price rockets up, of course, you know.
Roy has a huge collection of old toy projectors. I mean, Roy's a bit
Just my wife might be listening to it.
He only has two.
a huge collection of two projectors. But Roy's a bit of a hoarder, which is a very, to me, it's a virtue, being a hoarder, because you don't lose things. You don't say later on, I wish I hadn't thrown that out. But Roy's got all these toy projectors and little viewers. You wouldn't remember the Viewmasters, the 3D.
The only thing I can remotely relate it to is we would have wee things as kids that you look through and you spin round and you would almost like a flip book type.
Oh, yes, I
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine actually put me down very, very badly recently. I was showing him a collection of all my stuff, you know, and he said to me, "A man is rich by the fewness of his needs." I was so deflated, you know.
I've heard it like a man is rich by the amount of projectors he has.
I prefer that. Back I prefer that one, you know.
Yeah.
Very interesting. How old are you guys? So, Roscoe, how old are you?
I'm 18.
Mark, how old are you?
21.
21, right. So,
well, we can what? Almost quadruple that, you know.
Yeah.
Do you guys own any like music albums or movies, even on video or CD?
I remember back on an old TV that we had, we used to have these like the big video blocks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The video recorders and all. And I remember used to watching some shows in it, but then that was like maybe whenever I was 4 or 5. Then since then we don't have those anymore. We just have DVDs and stuff.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't have any of the albums. I just use Spotify for all my music and all that.
Oh, there.
I know, disappointing.
But you'll notice how vinyl's coming back in.
It is coming back.
Because people like to have something, and they can read the sleeve notes, and they can put it away and put it on the shelf, then build up their collection. Something nice about having a collection of things.
And it was Tim Clifford who we
Oh,
introduced.
yes.
Some
Put us in
records
touch
there.
with you two.
Yes.
So Roscoe and I, we introduced,
You
go
saw-
back and check out a previous episode. He's Ireland's largest vinyl collector.
Oh, definitely.
He's got a lot.
Like Tim's an
Martin,
extreme
do you have any
version.
albums?
What? Oh.
No, nothing. It's much the same. I would have DVDs kind of until I was maybe 7 or 8, and then after that,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
But what are you
DVDs
going to
going
have to
out
look at when you're about 30 years from now? When you look back, you're going to have no evidence of the things you grew up with, you know?
You see, the same thing applies to photographs. People say, got a great photograph of the baby. And they get the phone out and show you, you know. If you say to them in 3 weeks' time, I'd like to see a photograph again. Oh, I wiped that, you know, I haven't.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to get. Or show me a photograph from 3 Christmases ago.
That's
Oh,
right.
It's on one of my old phones.
That's
that
right,
thing, or I don't know if I can
That's
charge
right.
that anymore.
That's
That's
You ever
right,
heard
uh-huh.
of digital rot?
Rock?
Rot, R-O-T.
I can imagine it.
Yeah, so I remember chatting to, I don't know, he's a professor of medieval studies, and he was saying, you know, the most reliable piece of technology we have is paper.
Yeah.
He says all this cloud, all this
I
stuff
know.
on devices, says we're more risk of losing our memories and our
true.
music and everything than we're ever before.
That is true.
I can imagine the whole thing collapsing someday, the whole cloud business all collapsing and utterly nothing to show for it.
Well, you brought up Kindle earlier.
Yeah.
You know, Kindle's a good example where you pay, now some Kindle books are cheaper, but sometimes you can pay 10 quid for a Kindle book. You can only really use it on a Kindle device. You're really, it's more like leasing it from Amazon rather than actually owning something.
I like ownership, honestly.
Yeah.
I do like ownership.
I mean, we have all our old films going way back to Standard 8, a little Standard 8. I have all those. They're as good as the day I shot them.
Yeah.
Really are. And they may just
Matthew hasn't a clue what Standard 8 means.
no.
I just smile and nod, guys.
Oh, I see.
Standard 8 millimeter was 16 millimeter film slashed down the middle, you know, and to double the length of it.
Have you ever seen 16mm film? Actually, I had a bit in your
Not
hand.
in real life.
I mean,
That's hard to
that is
believe.
unreal to me.
Yeah, I tell you the closest thing that I can remember, and this is like when I was maybe like 4, was my parents would have taken the photographs to go and get developed, and they would have
that's
had the wee
right.
strips, and you would have looked
The negatives.
you would look
negatives.
through the light at the negative, and you would have seen it in small form. That's
yeah.
the only experience I have with what you.
Is your object today to make us feel ancient?
It's to help me learn about the past. So that's a different way of spinning that.
You see, splicing a film was actually literally a physical thing. You cut the film, and you had 2 ends in, and then you cut out the bit you didn't want, you threw it away, then you brought the 2 ends together, and you scraped a bit of the emulsion off, and then you put film, what's called film cement on, which is an adhesive, and then you pressed the 2 together, you actually literally spliced the film together.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine going into a studio today and saying to somebody, here's a 16mm splicers, any use to you? You know,
So, you know,
I've
both
been to the
these
bin
guys-
right
both
away.
These guys here, Mark and Roscoe, they do extensive editing.
Yeah, it's
And
so
have
easy.
you
nowadays.
ever done it physically?
No, but I remember.
I'm not even sure I knew that's how it worked until this moment.
I remember because when I'm doing MI and all that, and the film history used to do and all that, they were saying about back in the old days, they were going and.
No, he's really offending you.
no, he's actually complimenting it.
The good old days. The good old
There
days.
you go.
But yeah, they would go and whenever they were recording something like that, they'd take the wee film strip and all, and then they'd cut any splice any of
That's
the bits
right.
off and stuff
That's
like that,
right.
and then stick it onto the next
That's
bit. And all.
right.
So I remember learning about that in
Yeah.
history. Thanks,
But
MI.
if you got it wrong, though, I mean, that was too bad. You
Yeah,
cut it, you know.
yeah.
Well, with editing nowadays, you get it wrong, do it again. You know, repeat it, double it, duplicate anything you want with it.
Yeah.
In those days, you thought twice before you snipped the scissors, you know, because you weren't going to be able to repeat it.
I mean, we're not so backward that we can't see the advantages. I mean, DVD and video filming, I mean, you get instant results. You can see it right away, what you filmed. You can look at it instantly, and you can redo it instantly. And I mean, when we were making films, Roy will tell you all about it. I mean, you shot the film, you then had to send it away for processing. You had to wait maybe 2 weeks to come back from Germany or Kodak or somewhere like that. And you got it back. If you had a bad shot, you were in trouble. You had to go and do it all over again and send it away again. I mean, it was a slow, laborious business. But I think somehow the inaccessibility of it was almost part of the magic or the charm of it. You had to wait for your results, and there was an excitement. Nowadays, everything's so instant, which can be good and is good, but also can be it can cheapen things. It can almost vulgarize them, because you don't take. It comes so easy, easy come, easy go. I think that's
But at the
it.
same time, I wouldn't like to go back to the old.
No.
Too hard work.
Oh, it is, yeah, it is. It makes you, modern things make you lazy.
They do,
We did everything really the hard way. The camera sounded like a tractor going. It was a clockwork camera you wound up, and the noise of it was like a tractor. So I built this big case, it was like a coffin for a camera, lined with lead and old carpet and all to try to muffle the sound of it.
Mad.
And then a little eye hole in the back that I could peep through, That's why my nose is the shape it is, to go up against this box, trying to film through this box to cut down the noise of the camera.
I was carrying a big reel-to-reel tape recorder to record the sound. And then you had all the business of synchronization.
Pulses.
These guys, modern people just assume that sound and picture are matched up.
Yeah.
We filmed separately and recorded separately, and then you had to sync them all up.
Right, so that's what the marker is, right?
That's right, the marker.
right, yeah.
I was
Okay,
a marker
That's-
clapperboard to get your
clapperboard.
starting point,
Yeah.
Interesting.
You know that much? You know what a clapperboard is?
Yeah, but it's funny because even the clapper boards today, sometimes I think people just use them for the crack. Like, I
Yeah, it
think
looks
people
good.
use- it looks good.
You gotta get a thrill out of it,
And see, honestly, at the minute, like I'm producing some films at the minute, and they're just there because you get it at the start of the video file, but you see a lot of the software now, you'll record audio and video separately, but then you'll just tell the computer to line it up, and it does it for you.
Let's be honest about it. I mean, a film, like anything else, starts inside somebody's head, It's an
very
idea.
good, yeah.
It's just most important. And you can have the best gear and equipment in the world and the best processes and all the rest of it. And if you haven't got the narrative base or the skill to put a good story together, to make a good film, that's where it starts. I mean, every program you see on TV started off inside somebody's head. There's no question about that. And all these electricians and directors and costumiers and assistant directors and producers, all these people are depending on one person who had inside his head had an idea or a thought and developed it. That's where it all begins. So without people with that kind of creative energy and creative originality, you're nowhere, really.
Noel's a redder, see, that's why he's pushing us.
No, well, it's not so much that.
Well,
but,
so this is good, okay? Talk to me about the KT.
Well, the
because-
KT, we got a job. This lady came to us and asked us, we did the odd commercial job and tried to make a few quid. And she asked us to do this job. And we said, yeah, we can do that. But she hadn't self-confidence just to trust us. So she came along to more or less interviews and she brought this smart guy with her, and he was out to impress. I don't know whether he had hopes with her afterwards or not, but he was certainly trying to impress. He was using every word in the dictionary, post-impressionism, flying spot, differential focusing, using all the terms you think of, glancing over to see if she is sufficiently impressed. Then he started to quiz us. She said, I assume you're doing, he deepened the voice, I assume you're using this. What lens would you be using, telephoto and all this? And then he says to us, and could you tell me, do you use a Moviola or Steinbeck editor? You see? Again, I glanced over to see if she was impressed. And I said, actually, we use a KT editor. Oh, KT, yes, I think I know that one. He said, I think I've experience of that one, you see. So we said we found the KT editor really works, gives us what we want. That was okay. By the way, we got the job, strangely enough. But coming down the stairs afterwards, Noel says to me, what is a KT editor? And I said, yeah, the kitchen table. But the guy had said he had experience, obviously.
he knew it.
But it is like every creative process, it starts with somebody with their bum in a chair,
Yeah.
hitting their head against the
Yeah.
table and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a writer starts off with white paper. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't have white paper, but I mean, to simplify it, you start off with a blank page, and a pen in your hand. And you don't do it that way nowadays, but the idea is the same. It has to come out, has to come out from somebody's thoughts, somebody's imagination, or somebody's original creativity inside his head.
Yeah.
Let
Let me ask you this. What movie have you seen the most? And how many times do you reckon you've seen it?
Oh, it's a hard question. One of my favorites is, see, we like the B pictures, the 1950s black and white B pictures. That would be our main interest. The one I've watched repeatedly is a film called Terror from the Year 5000.
And you're going to say that, yeah.
The British title was Cage of Doom. It's a cheapie, but I can watch those films over and over again. The modern films, they have a lot going for
If
them.
you were to hazard a guess, how many times have you seen that movie?
I would say probably about 25 to 30 times. You know.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen a movie over 10 times?
Nah, I haven't really. Nah.
Maybe one or two.
What would your one or two be?
Actually, you know what? Mostly once when I was a kid, I would have just watched
Right.
stuff over and over. But then again, I suppose it's the physical copies, and you've got the less choice.
Bro,
Maybe
this
it's part of
is
it, yeah.
this is where I was going. So I've watched
Too much.
I think it might be the 1987 or the 1997 Disney movie Hercules.
Oh, yeah.
I must have seen it about 40 times.
Yeah.
But you know why?
Why?
Because it was the only thing we had on VHS.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was wondering with Spotify and everything, I think it's the same with music albums. You use the word throwaway and instant, easy come, easy go, temporary. And I think with music these days, people will listen to an album and that's it. Then they'll move on to the next album.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have that scarcity and you have that physical
Yes,
thing,
absolutely.
you've got to listen to it over and over and over
Yeah.
and over.
But it builds up an affection too, a loyalty to it, whereas if you get something thrown at you and you can look at it and throw it away again, you've no attachment. You've no emotional or psychological attachment to that thing.
So what modern movies were you saying you were enjoy?
The last one which I saw, which I really enjoyed, was Where the Crawdads Sing. Have you seen that?
It's based off the book, isn't it?
It's very, very good. I saw that. And I thought that the recent Blue Lights on TV was very good. The Belfast one. Have you seen that?
I actually haven't, no.
Oh, have you guys seen it?
No.
Oh, it's very good. It's getting good reviews. Blue Lights. It's still running at the moment. Though,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is
Still
only
running. It was very well written.
Do you watch TV? You guys?
Used to a lot more, not as much anymore. No.
What do you do? Netflix?
No, I don't really watch shows
watch anything?
anymore, to be honest.
No.
Yeah.
Do you TV in your house, Roscoe?
Yeah, we do have a TV, but normally I'm using my phone to look up stuff on YouTube and all. Like, I don't really watch films.
This is so sad. This is so sad.
We brought you in here today to make you feel miserable.
We can, I think we can leave at any time.
But listen, the whole corporate experience of going to a cinema is going to be lost to guys like Daniel. I mean, he'll sit in his room and what? I mean, the whole togetherness, the whole community or corporate thing, of enjoying and everybody laughing at the same time or jumping at the same time, all that's going to be lost,
Yeah, that is something I do agree with you. I think as technology has increased, it's brought people more into themselves.
Yeah.
So you think about back in the day, even before radio, I lived in the village in Belfast there on the Donegal Road for a few years.
Windsor Cinema.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Windsor well.
And it's interesting, chatting to some of the older folk that lived there, like, like back in the day, there used to be no cars on the street. Everyone used to be out playing, barbecuing, having the crack. And then slowly everyone started to go more inside.
Yeah.
And you had radio and then you had TV. And now people weren't outside, they were sitting in front of the TV. And next thing you know, you've got phones and computers. And now people aren't even in the living room. If you look at a family, like all the families in different parts of the house, it's crazy.
Matthew, I'm going to ask these two guys here. I'm going to take two films from the period we like, which were big hits, to see if they've heard of them.
Lump me in because I'm going to be as guilty as
Okay,
these guys
I'll
are.
pick 3 or 4. Have you heard of Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
I have heard the name, yes.
Right.
No.
Okay. Have you heard of I Was a Teenage Werewolf?
No.
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I've heard of it, like slightly. I think someone sent it to me before, like as a film suggestion, but I haven't looked into it or anything. So.
Have you heard of Creature from the Black Lagoon, as Roy says? No?
Oh yeah, I have from MI and all that. I've heard my teacher talking about it and stuff like that, like movies to check out and stuff.
I'd like to meet your teacher. He sounds like a wise guy.
Actually, my old MIA teacher and all that, he used to be a cameraman and all. Like my
nice.
original one, so he would be doing and filming like cameras and all that for film studios and everything like that. And he had a big knowledge about films and all. Like I'd be going to him if I wanted some information. So,
But the funny thing, Matthew, I mean, it's almost fashionable nowadays to take the sort of films Roy and I like and mock them, make fun of them and get mileage out of that, making fun of them.
Aye.
Roy and I watch those films today with the same respect and affection and admiration as we did all those years ago. We haven't lost any appreciation at all. We haven't lost any appreciation of, honestly. We really haven't.
Yeah.
We still love them. We still enjoy them. Watch them over and over again. How many films, I wonder, would Daniel and Mark watch over and over again?
Honestly, even myself, like there's about 5 movies that I've seen more than 3 times, and even more than that, even books. There's about 5 books I've read more than once. C.S. Lewis got a great thing where he says, any book worth reading is worth reading about 10 times. Don't go back to it. You know?
But here's the amazing thing. Last year was 2022. Now, exactly 100 years ago, Nosferatu came out, the silent one. People are watching that, and they're getting as big a buzz from that, 100-year-old.
These guys are laughing.
You've heard of Nosferatu?
I've heard of it, yeah.
You've heard of it?
My
You
teacher's
must
talking
watch
about it, and
Nosferatu.
I was studying it as well for some of my filmmaking. And all
Oh,
that.
yes,
I was
it's
looking
very
through different
popular,
clips, like the whole what they did with the shadows and all that kind of stuff. It was
And
amazing.
Caligari, I'm sure you've heard of Caligari.
Yeah, the cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
There you go. We're on. We're
There's
getting
hope-
somewhere now.
There's
Film
hope.
knowledge has helped
There's
me.
hope. There's hope for
for this
Daniel.
guy.
There's hope for Daniel.
Thank
Mark,
you to
Mark,
my
you're
art
right. You're
teacher.
Mark's
definitely
finished.
Keep the
And by the way, Daniel, we're here to show you how not to make movies.
Technology, got a notepad right here. I'm taking notes.
But I'll push back slightly on something you said, right? So I do agree with you. People look back at old movies and they kind of take the hand out of them because the visual effects look so bad and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, but the idea is the
Quote, unquote.
freshness was there.
Freshest of ideas. But there is, in the younger generation, there's a real hunger for things that aren't hyper polished. Because I think the last 20 years, it's just been so squeaky. It's almost too squeaky. And they want a wee bit something more rough and ready.
I'm so pleased you said that because Noel and I brought out 2 training, we call them training discs, called No Budget Special Effects and No Budget Special Effects Makeup. Have you seen these guys?
Come on, Roscoe, you need to be all over that. You need to
No,
get your
it shows-
MIA to put that on the curriculum.
Well, it shows you.
I'll see about putting it on.
He didn't say low budget. He said no budget.
budget.
Yeah, no
No
budget.
budget special
It
effects.
shows you how to do like lightning bolts and volcanic eruptions, all these things, on the cheap. Spending no money, because everything we did was on the cheap, and the special effects makeup, how to do head busts and werewolf masks, all that sort of thing on the cheap. But the point I'm making is, which coincides exactly what you said, we get phone calls and from universities and all the time, wanting permission to take extracts and use our tapes. We always say, of course, we're not precious about our work. Anybody who wants to watch them is free to watch them. No copyright or anything like that. I'm just too glad people are looking at them. But they want the old age. They want to do the things physically. Right. So if they want like a misty cloud moving across, we show how to do that. Now you can probably bring a misty cloud up on the computer and get that. And everybody's film ends up with a misty cloud looking the same. Whereas if you do it the Spence way, you're getting something unique. You're getting a tank of water and you're throwing milk down into it and letting it float across. Things like that, or a sheet of glass pulled across a lens and spray it with paint. We have all the cheap ways of doing things, but they're personalized. They're not taken just off a computer. And exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. I think there could be a real market for these discs. I'll give you your market exactly. So like all the TikTok guys, right? So a lot of people use TikTok very, very creatively.
Do you want to be our agent?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've got a contract for you here. I'll just slide this across
Not
the table.
percent, not percent.
Not 0.0%. And, a lot of the guys are using TikTok very creatively where they're recording straight from their phone. They're publishing, they're right in front of the audience. And actually, a lot of these no-budget special effects, they could actually go down really, really well on a platform like that, I think.
We used to do workshops, you see, for different groups. You maybe have heard of Cine Magic.
Yes, we're interviewing Joan in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Well, we used to work for Cine Magic way back in the day, and we used to do these workshops, and they really loved hands-on stuff, mucking in with clay and syrup and powder, face powder, all these different things. Ashes, and making little model houses and doing model work. Roy's a bit of an expert, if I say, he won't mind me saying, on tabletop work, miniatures. And I mean, it's fantastic. You know who we actually met? In fact, he was on my cinema. Have you heard? This is a big one for you guys. You'll fail or pass on this. Have you heard of Ray Harryhausen?
Sorry, Mark.
I failed.
I've heard it someone before. I've heard it someone before.
You've heard of Jason and the Argonauts, haven't you?
I have heard of that, yeah.
Roy, we're out of our league here. There's a broad generation and culture gap here.
I know we should have had like a bridge, like another party here to translate between the two parties.
An interpreter.
An interpreter.
You should have had this interview in an old people's home.
Everyone would have been nodding along.
Yeah.
But we were actually, it's fair to say, we were restrained when we were shooting films by technical considerations, which young people nowadays are free from. You can go in and buy a camera, point it. Don't worry about exposure. Don't worry about focus. Don't worry about color balance. Just point it. Synchronization. None of those problems that we had. Just point it. You get a silent running camera, which will give you properly exposed films 99 out of 100.
Yeah.
Whereas we spent our whole time worrying, have you exposure set? Are the clouds coming going to change the exposure? You know, what are you getting pulses for the sound? You know, and really, we were having to do. We couldn't do lip sync. We were having to dub most of the sound. We couldn't do lip sync. I'm sure you guys take lip sync for granted. People speaking the sounds out.
I mean, yeah, some people use it, but personally myself, I prefer like just doing the actual audio and all that with because lip sync, as much as it works and all that, I think it's kind of like a fallback in a way. Like it's not a good use of it.
What do you think what do you think we as young creators, as filmmakers, lose by having everything so instant and accessible?
I think you lose the thrill in many ways. I mean, when we got a film back from processing, you pulled it out and you held it up and you saw little pictures and the thrill that went through your heart. You never lost that. You're always surprised to see there were pictures on it at all. You know, when you hold it up, hey, this come out all right, you know, and you want to pull a bit more out, there's pictures, you know. And that thrill still there, you know, to hold up a piece of film and see that. I think people are quite blasé about it now, you know, just point the trigger and know they're going to get pictures. I think the thrill is gone in many ways.
Even doing titles, we went on to see a guy, you know, and he was a whiz kid. And all he could do was produce, he showed us about 100 different ways of doing titles. He never got beyond making titles. You know, he was taken over by the whole medium, you know, of being able to do all this on the computer. He never made a film, you know, never. He got no far. It became an end in itself.
Yeah.
Instead of the titles being the beginning of a film, the titles became the end product. You know, that was as far as he went.
Without sounding superior, Matthew, which you know, I hope you know we're not, but I think a lot of people, you ask what people have lost nowadays, I think they've lost a lot of creativity. Really do. I mean, they're brilliant with special effects and explosions and car chases and all these things and rolling over titles and all this, but the creativity isn't there. You know, and that's why we go back to the 50s stuff. The ideas were fantastic. Always something fresh, always something new. A lot of the stuff nowadays is just regurgitated stuff from the 50s, you know, with fancy effects.
Yeah.
But if you examine the stories, you know, there's nothing new.
They've done remakes
that
too,
is
sorry.
something
Yeah,
good there. Like I love some of the films and all that for the stories and all the intriguing plots that they have and stuff like that. And different characters, how they're built up and stuff like that. I love films for that and all that kind of stuff because it's just brilliant.
Roscoe and I went to see a movie a couple of weeks ago in the new cinema in Castle Court. What's it called? The Avenue.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
And it was one of these superhero movies from DC. And honestly, like it was called Shazam, and it was one of the worst movies I've seen because the story was non-existent. It was like the weakest story, and I have a pretty low bar for going to the cinema and enjoying yourself. And I walked in, and I was like, that was absolutely wicked. But I think what you're saying is, and it had huge budget, massive visual and special effects. But you're talking about the 50s, I guess. All you really had was the strength of your idea. You couldn't compensate by having this flashy thing and that flashy thing. It's like, is your story good or is it not good?
But also, is it original? I mean, Godzilla, you've all heard of Godzilla.
Yeah.
Okay. Godzilla came out in 56. That was the original.
Wow.
Now, there have been about 7 Godzilla films since then.
Oh, far more than that.
Well, it would be
Dozens of them.
Probably,
Dozens of them.
yeah. All these Godzilla films, and they're all. Some of them, the one we last saw was awful, but it
Shin Godzilla.
It had millions of dollars spent on it,
Yeah.
you know, the effects, you know, and it just, if we'd had a chance of seeing the original old black and white one with a man inside a suit trampling over model houses, or this new one, I know which one I'd have preferred to see, you know, because of the freshness of it, you know, and the ideas and, you know, but money doesn't necessarily mean success, really. Your Shazam backs that up, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Talk to me about white tights.
Oh, white tights. We were shooting a film called The Tudor and Exiles, and it involved these shaggy white creatures from space, you know. And we were filming at nighttime filming, and when we were doing it, was cables across the field, moss coming down, committing kamikaze in the lights, rain threatening all the light
Actors
blowing,
wanting home.
actors wanting home. Well, one of the actresses freaked out with these moss coming down, and we blew all the lights in the house. The whole place was nighttime filming was absolute hell. But we were filming at Tudor and Exiles, and part of the makeup was the men had to wear white tights, and we put dark veins down the white tights, and it all looked pretty good. And the head was all whited out and all, looked good. And during the hurly-burly of the filming, you can kind of overlook the obvious. I didn't spot this. I was saying, great shot, on to the next one. No rehearsal, everything was done once, of course, to save film stock. But anyway, when we got the rushes back, I was looking at them and, no. One of the aliens was wearing dark blue underpants, and they showed clearly through the white, And I couldn't understand why an alien from the farthest reaches of outer space should be wearing Marks and Spencer's dark blue Y fronts. So we had to redo the whole series again, and the sensitive direction which was given to the actor was just act the same as last time, but don't wear dark blue. that was the direction he got. Wear white underpants.
Unbelievable.
I mean, a lot of the things, looking back on them, a lot of things that happened, because we have been at it for so long, a lot of things are funny now, but none of them are funny at the time. They were.
Bet you felt like crying.
Oh yeah,
Your blood boiled.
we can laugh at all those things now, but at the time it was the end of your life.
But looking back, the thing we probably enjoyed most, or one of the things we enjoyed most, was doing on-the-spot filmmaking with small groups of people. We did these for different groups. We shot up in Ballycastle and Derry and all over the place. And Roy and I would go along. We had no idea before we went what sort of group was going to be there, how many there would be, whether they were male, female, young, old. So when we got there, Roy and I got together, and on the spot we had to write a script, or produce a script in our heads that would match who we had in front of us, which was great. And then these people, a lot of them were unemployed, and they were in some sort of scheme, and we made them pay for the course.
Nice.
Now that wasn't because we wanted their money.
It was.
That was part of the reason. The other reason was if they were paid. A tenor said was, I don't remember what it was, but for these people who are unemployed, that was a lot of money, And the fact that they were prepared to come along and donate £10 towards us meant they were going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
They weren't going to go outside and start larking about and making a fool of themselves and us and that. So it worked. And the kick we got out of making these films on the spot, the script had to be produced. I remember Roy and I got up on the bus one time and writing a script on the way up on the bus up to Derry, we knew there was going to be 6 people there. We wrote a script around that. And then we shot it when we got there, and then we came home and put the titles and dubbed music and all on it, and did the post-production at home. And then we went back up, and they brought their aunts and girlfriends and brothers and so on along, and we had the premiere, and they saw themselves on the screen. Wow. And we know that it was a moment that'll stay with them the rest of their lives, because their lives are fairly empty.
But the film stand up well.
The film stand up well.
I'm saying that in all modesty, they do stand up well.
Yeah.
Let's do it now. Let's pick our cast now. Moody teenager.
They're pointing at me, by the way.
Moody teenager. Mark would be the deep studious type.
Is that the glasses?
Locked away in a garage.
Dan is a skittish one.
Dan is the good time guy. The good time. So we read a wee story involving you three. Just
the clash of
we had, but quite serious. We had to make on the spot decisions.
Yeah.
With one day to pick a cast, write a story, get the whole thing shot on one day.
You know how we did it too, honestly? If people looked the part, they were immediately convincing. There's no use casting a 36-year-old man as a teenager, or a white-haired man as a child.
Or a guy without glasses to be someone studious.
So we formed a character, we created the character on the basis of what people looked like, and it worked.
Yeah.
I'd love you to see some of those
Yeah,
ones, 'cause they
yeah.
really do stand up. You know,
They
and
do, yeah.
we used to black the rooms out with black cloth the whole way around with staple gun, and then we brought in clumps of rushes and branches of trees, and we built the graveyard and all inside. You know, and filmed the whole thing inside. We set the smoke alarm off, of course, when the police and all were out. The whole this is a big building.
I was up in
hired.
Ballycastle.
Ballycastle,
I remember,
aye.
yeah,
We
yeah.
set the smoke alarm, the whole smoke, things like that go on all the time.
Brilliant.
But
Talk to me about there was something else to do with police.
oh yes,
and a-
I remember
and a- and a
again.
newspaper maybe.
Yes, exactly. You have a great memory. A friend of mine was playing a scientist. He had a white lab coat on, and he was all made up with horrific radiation burns after an atomic explosion, and he really did look quite grotesque. And the back of the car was full of junk cameras and tripods and all that sort of thing. So he had to sit. I was driving. He had to sit in the passenger seat, and we were heading over to Helens Bay. And he said, if anybody sees me, I guess, he said, I'll never show my face in Cumber again. So he came up with the idea of holding a newspaper up and hiding behind the newspaper till we got there. So we drove through Cumber, and just as we came out of Cumber, as you can imagine, this was in the 70s, there was a police and army check. You guys mightn't even remember that. There was a police and army check, flagged us down, put the window down. Morning, officer, usual. Where are you for? Well, heading over. I'm from Cumber. Actually, I'm heading over to Helens Bay to see a friend. Yes, And what about your Davy? My friend Davy. He was still sitting in behind the newspaper. So the policeman looked in past me. He said, "And what about you, sir? You the same?" Davy lowered the paper down. You see, and he had bright blue eyes. The policeman saw these two bright blue eyes staring out from this hideous makeup. And he said, "Right, sir, drive on." He said, "Mind those bends up ahead." He just cut you. I never saw a road check end as abruptly in my life as that one.
Yeah.
It was the thing. I remember we were filming in the graveyard, and it was an old deserted graveyard. But occasionally, maybe once or twice a year, they would have a funeral because it was a family grieving funeral. And we were filming in the graveyard, and an actual funeral arrived. The hearse. We had to hide down behind the gravestones with
And
the
behind
cameras
yew trees.
and behind yew trees and hide till the funeral was over, and then get back out and continue filming. These are things we laugh at now. But at the time, it was the end of your life.
But some of the natural locations were brilliant. There's a place up in Ballycastle called Bonamargay.
Bonamargay
Graveyard. And anybody ever wanted to make an old witch film or a haunted film, this place is absolutely fabulous. It's a brilliant set. It would cost you thousands to make it, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
You just walk in, and there's these old corroded headstones and
Covered in ivy
and
and-
crumbled, and it's absolutely brilliant, honestly. Absolutely brilliant.
Wow. Let's do. What year were you guys born?
44.
Right.
Christmas Day, 44.
I was born in '95. When were you born?
2001.
2004.
2004.
Can you imagine 1944?
Wow.
We were war babies. You see, we were born during the Second World War.
Absolutely.
War was just ending, and
Where was home for you guys?
Cumber.
Cumber born in
God's little acre. We never live anywhere.
That's right.
The
What do
hub
they call
of the
Bangor? The
universe.
Vale of Angels?
What?
They call Bangor the Vale of Angels?
I wouldn't call it that. I won't tell you what we'd call it.
Angel dust.
I was talking to a guy the other day. He said he was from Newton Ards. I said, "You know the best thing, the thing I love about Newton Ards?" He says, "What's that?" I said, "The last bus to Cumber on a Saturday night." So you've heard that before.
Cumber's nice. Good spot.
We love
Big
Cumber,
food
yeah.
scene as well.
Yeah.
Lots going
Oh,
on.
it is. No, we love Cumber. And Cumber in the area, it's got everything. It's handy to beaches and water, Strangford Lough.
Yeah.
It's got forests, it's got mountains, scrub, it's got old quarries.
The airport.
It's got the airport, but it's handy from filming
Oh, yeah,
point
from
of view.
point of view, yeah.
There's all the topography you'd want around
So
the Cumber area.
you were about 8 years old when you first walked into the Ritz.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, where on earth was the Ritz?
Well, there was Ritz in
Ritz,
Belfast
the
and there's
big
one in
Ritz,
Ards.
I have no idea where that is.
Fisherwick Place.
Right?
It's right in the corner of the Grosvenor Road.
Right.
You don't remember the Ritz?
It's unbelievable.
Well, when would the Ritz have closed
That's
down?
close about 80.
See, I wouldn't even thought of that.
That's awful hard to
I
bridge. this
can't
gap.
believe- can't
I
believe
can't,
that.
can't bridge this gap at all.
What other cinemas would there have been in Belfast?
But Belfast had
65 cinemas. I do talks. I do talks in old Belfast cinemas. You know, I actually go around.
65?
Yeah. It's like, not all together at one time, but over the period of history.
My goodness.
We used to buy a Belfast Telegraph because we went to cinema 4 or 5 nights a week, and it would be 3.5 columns.
No, 1.5.
Was there?
You're exaggerating.
I
1.5.
probably am. Probably am.
I'll let him embellish.
Sounds better. No, there were great rows. rows of cinemas right down.
Right, alphabetical order.
Right down.
Wow.
Well, first was the Alpha, was it?
Alpha, yeah.
Alpha,
and then the
right.
ambassador.
And then the Willowfield.
Well, at the end.
Right at the end, right down.
So if you're going to cinema 4 or 5 times a week,
Nick.
we have a mate called Nick. He's got one of those Omni passes where you can go and
Oh,
see.
yes,
He's in the cinema loads.
Uh-huh.
Would there have been how many movies would have come out a week?
Well, you see, it depends. If it's a second run house, they did 3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a double feature. So
double
if you went 3 times in 1 week, you could see 6 films.
Wow.
Whereas the big cinemas like the Ritz, they got a big film in and they held it for a week at least. And maybe you'd see a sign up second great week. If it was popular, they would keep on holding it and then would give it out to the Strand or the Majestic, which were sister cinemas of the Ritz ABC
Gotcha.
circuit.
So the rerun cinemas, as you
Rerun
call them,
cinemas,
they're kind of like the step above Extravision, where you could go and see movies that were made 10 years ago but that were popular. Someone would go put on, I'm going to put on Godzilla this week for the crack and try to sell a few tickets. Is that the sort of setup?
that sort of thing, yeah.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Well,
But
And then they would filter down.
like
They would filter down to the country cinemas as well, And there were a lot of small independent cinemas.
we like those cheapies.
They would get the films which were about 10 or 15 years out of date, and run independent.
They
They
show
were
anything
great.
to make up a program,
Yeah.
reruns, anything. It was great.
And you could go in the afternoon and sit all day. You sit and watch a program over 2 or 3 times, because there was nobody chased you out or anything.
You used to hear people say, getting up halfway through and say, this is where I come in. That's where we come in. I get up and go out again.
They recognised,
Oh, right, because they weren't even there at the start of the movie.
No,
No,
you
just
walk in any time, and watch it.
Incredible.
And just walk in the middle of something and sit down, you saw it repeated.
Wow.
But we remember big queues up outside the Ritz and the buskers, and a guy playing the saw. Remember that?
Oh, yeah,
He played a saw.
The saw.
He had a saw on your bed. You got like a theremin sound, off the saw.
And buskers.
But when Elvis, I remember when Jailhouse Rock and all came out, the queue was right down the street, right round the corner, round the Cumber Square. Remember the queue for Elvis films?
So what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they also would have shown music videos in the cinema. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, it was Elvis.
Was Jailhouse Rock a movie?
Yeah,
Like an
yeah.
actual big proper movie?
Oh yeah.
Man, I'm getting schooled here.
1958.
Wow. I just thought it was a song.
Oh no,
me.
Jailhouse Rock.
And Loving You was a
Loving You was another.
Loving
Because I knew Elvis acted, but I didn't realize.
Films are pretty ropey. Like,
Roy, I'm realising more and more how much we know.
You picked the right audience to be very smart with, let me tell you
I'm
that.
realising just how old we are.
I'm just thankful of the fact is that you are here, so that means we can learn more and all that. That's the kind of stuff that I am happy about.
100%, yeah.
We can learn a lot more about it.
So am I right in saying that you had your hand in running a few cinemas as well?
Well, we built cinemas for people. We have our own cinemas, as you know, the private cinema. We know it's got the Tudor of the Excelsior, which was closed down now in the last couple of years. But we built cinemas. We built cinemas in Liverpool and all
Kent.
over Kent, all over the place. We built cinemas. For
Galway.
people.
Remember Galway? It's Athenry.
Athenry, yeah. We built cinemas, for people in basements and garages, and built a lovely cinema down Helens Bay, which is still running, the Waldo in Helens Bay.
Waldo.
The
We should go
Waldo.
to that.
It's a lovely cinema.
Yeah, we need to go do that at one point.
I think I heard there was one. Is there one up in like Cushendun?
There was an actual cinema in Cushendon, but you mean today?
Is it gone now?
Oh yeah, it's long gone. Yeah,
Really, yeah.
it's long gone.
Very, very few now, yeah. But the Strand remained loyal the whole way through, right through
Yeah.
the troubles and all. And the Strand's still doing very good work. It's an arts centre now, as you know.
But it
Strand
used to
is-
be no matter which village, if you drove around Northern Ireland, every single village worth its name or town had a cinema, and you could recognise the building. It's very distinctive, the asbestos sloped roof behind a facade, and sometimes a little bit curved facade, and the marquee out onto the street and the curved stone steps. I mean, they were all very distinctive. They were I loved the buildings. I just
They
loved
were called
cinemas.
Picture Palaces.
Picture Palaces.
yeah.
Picture
lovely.
Palaces, and were beautiful. Sometimes they had decor, big scenes painted up on the walls, like palisades and bunches of grapes hanging over pillars. No, I remember Calais was a guy.
Yeah.
All sorts of lovely artwork
So
on the walls.
you ran the Excelsior.
I ran the Excelsior.
Where was that?
It was down beside my house in Cumber, built across
Cumber.
the garden. Oh yes, everything radiates out from Cumber.
Center of the universe.
That is exactly.
And I know the Tudor because I interviewed one of the guys from Tudor Cinema Club,
Oh, yes.
and
right,
they said that your cinema was
That's right,
the origin of their name.
Can you believe this? I mean, people are really crazy. I got a phone call one night with some guy from Detroit,
Right?
and he says, "Is that the Tudor Cinema?" And I says, "Yes." He says, could we come and visit it? And I says, yeah. Who, when? He said, well, we'll have to get a flight organised. He was bringing He was bringing his daughter over to see. She was a fanatical Two-Door Cinema Club fan. Wow. So he brought. I've had people from Germany. I'm still in touch with them.
Yeah.
Who came because the daughter in Germany was a Two-Door Cinema Club. Japan, France, South of Ireland, England. Where else? All these people coming to see the Tudor because they want to sit in the seat of the cinema that their idols based their title on, their name on, Two-Door Cinema Club, you know,
That's mad.
They want to get their photograph taken outside, you know, and they think this is absolutely amazing, you know. For a pop group, I mean, I wouldn't mind going. When we were young, we used to hitch lifts down to Dublin to see a film, you know, and then it would be on Belfast the next week. We couldn't wait. It's true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How long would it have taken to get to Dublin?
Depending on how good the lifts were.
Yeah.
You thumbed lifts in those days, you never worried about anything, you know.
Sure.
You'd no bother. I'm talking about the what?
Early
Early
60s.
60s, yeah. Early 60s, yeah. Or mid 60s, yeah.
I remember sitting in the back of a wee little moped, a guy, 50cc, the whole way from Cumber to Dublin. And when I got off it, I was so stiff and cold and sore. To see Boris Karloff and the Body Snatcher, I was on Dublin. There was a rumour that was going to show it in Belfast the following week, but I couldn't take the chance that they mightn't. So I went down to Dublin to see it. Sure enough, it was on Belfast the following week. I wanted to make sure of it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So cinemas today, where do you like to go?
Less and less, I must admit. Less and less.
There's none that beats it. The best film I've seen for a long time was The Banshees of Inisherin. I thought it was great. It was great, you know.
Yeah.
Where do we go? Dundonald and ours. Nice cinema in Dundonald and one in
What's
ours.
that? The Omniplex or what?
Yes,
Yes,
Omniplex,
Omniplex,
Yeah.
And there's a cinema in ours as well.
Yeah.
What's it called? Movieland?
Movieland.
Movieland.
I was gutted. We just lost the movie house there around the corner.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So I used to, as I say, I used to live around here. Obviously, I work here, and I come from a writing background before anything else. And so if I was having a particularly hard day around lunchtime, I'd just bugger off and go see a movie and come back, and all my ideas would flow after that. So I miss it, you know, and because now you're really now the avenue's opened up in Castlecourt. You've got a few, but this part of Belfast, you've got QFT. And then you have to go either Odeon or the Avenue now. But it used to be a wee cheeky one in the middle, like 2 for Tuesdays and all.
Your gate's still going, isn't it?
Your gate's still going, exactly.
Michael McAdam, he owned it, or he runs it, you know.
We always found the difficulty with QFT was parking.
Yeah, it's tough. It's got harder as well.
Yeah, it was always a problem with QFT. It would put you off going, actually.
Yeah.
Luxury seats, though.
Oh, lovely
nice
big
seats. Oh,
seats.
good seats. Good seats, yeah.
Awesome. So wrapping up then, there's a few questions we ask every guest. Feel free to tailor these whatever way you want. If you could go out for a cup of coffee with anyone from Northern Ireland, dead or alive, who would you take and where would you take them?
From Northern Ireland?
We know there's not really a lot of special people from here and all that, but
Be you quiet.
Well, there are, but not in our sort of sphere of experiences.
That's a good point, actually. Was there anyone that kind of came up alongside you guys? Or even in the years after you? Like, who do we have in terms of filmmaking from here? We've got a load of actors.
Well, you know John T. Davis down in Hollywood?
Yeah.
He did Shell Shock Rock and Route 66, all those. He's a local filmmaker. And then there's quite a few people. I'm sure you know Michael Hewitt of Double Band. I'm sure you know all that. And a lot of film, very good.
There's another wee guy, we like to think we influenced him, or he says we did anyhow. Enda Hughes, you heard of him?
What did he do?
He's in London now.
He's from Katie originally, but he's a good wee filmmaker, you know. He made
That's one thing. Sorry, no, go ahead.
He made a wee film called Flying Saucer Rock and Roll, which is completely about what we're into, you know, rock and roll of the 50s and teenagers and invaders from outer space, you know, which was the key themes. And he made a wee film as a tribute to that. Ardlo Hanlon was in, have you heard of him?
Keep going.
No, he's a well-known comedian. He acted in it.
No, we're happy to say that we do, or we have influenced quite a few people, you know, in their careers. We're pleased about that. A lot of people, even yet, would still come to us to discuss things with us, you know, and what ideas they have. And some people come to us looking for makeup done. We don't do makeup now. We're sort of more or less retired now, but it's the people still come looking to talk about things.
Yeah.
And we do feel we have helped a lot of people along the way.
That's clear, for sure.
Yeah, where we can help, we do. We will, you know, and we're never standoffish about anything.
But to answer your question, I can't honestly think of anybody I would bend over backwards to.
I can think of a lot I would avoid.
Honestly, I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
I can't think of one person.
Can't think of anyone. We're not political animals either, so there's no one in politics that interests us.
What was it about aliens?
Well, it's just that so
That
many,
does it for you.
so many of the '50s films, you know, were based on that. You see, the sort of the supernatural type of horror film, you know, the Wolfman, the Vampire, now had burnt itself out from Universal films.
Yeah.
And then in the '50s, they turned away from the supernatural fairy tale stuff to scientific stuff, science fiction stuff.
Interesting.
And part of the science fiction scene, apart from all the atomic explosions and that sort of stuff, was invasion from outer space.
Flying saucers were big news at the time.
That's
you know,
right.
so.
1947 was the first big flying saucer.
Have you heard of Roswell?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, I've heard
A
of it.
natural spaceship is supposed to have landed in Roswell, in America, and Texas, isn't it?
It's a brilliant film. Actually, there's a film made on with Kevin McCloskey. It's a brilliant film.
And it's supposed to be
Roswell.
that some of the creatures inside were taken by the American authorities and kept hidden and was never revealed. You know, there's a strong belief that there was a flying saucer landed.
Yeah.
You know, but
But it's a great film.
That turns that into a different type of podcast if we go down that.
Ask us an easier question.
I've got a
Okay,
wee question
go
I would
ahead.
like to jump into.
okay.
If you could give it, what kind of advice would you give to young film directors who want to get into the business and all that? Like, how can they create this kind of big film industry and all that kind of stuff? Like, what kind of advice could you give?
Specifically, one called Daniel.
Yes,
Specifically, producer Oscar.
Let me say, you couldn't be born at a better, or you couldn't be active at a better time. I mean, there's more. The Northern Ireland film scene is healthier now than it's ever been in its entire existence. It has. I mean, the work done by the Northern Ireland Film Commission, you know, and the films being made in Belfast, there's a lot of room for extras. People are, and crews. A lot of people are getting work now in major films, which never happened before. Northern Ireland is now a major film making centre. But for somebody who wants to be a director, there's no magic formula. You can't just walk in there and start directing. You have to build, come up through the ranks and get experience of being on sets, you know. Work on sets and get to know people. I say most things, knowing the right people and a wee bit of luck, being in the right place at the right time. I know that's not very helpful advice. You can't go
No,
out there
but
and-
then again, I can understand where you're coming from because that is just how it goes. Like, for example, in my case, getting this job here, I got lucky meeting Matthew in a way and stuff like that. And then
Call that luck.
Hey, I'm the moody teenager. You better watch yourself.
yeah, I better watch myself here. And even still, going on about that, like building it up, that's what I want to try and do during my time, like with this kind of thing. I want to build up my skills a lot more. Like, for example, before this whole film stuff and that, I wasn't the best at drawing, and storyboards and all that are important in this kind of things. So I'm just slowly by slowly getting better at drawing. From the fact is that I'm building up my skills from this.
Yeah.
But I would say, Dan, you go out and actually shoot a couple of films.
Yeah.
You get, I mean,
Yeah.
you see when you shoot it, you realise all the obstacles and all the pitfalls, and it also broadens your experience because you have to produce, you have to
Yeah.
direct, you have to
You have to make
think of
use of like
costume,
different mistakes
makeup.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, you learn making your own film. You learn so many things you haven't even considered.
That's right.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's
transport, just availability of
Yeah.
things. You know, how to borrow, how to beg, how,
How to work
steal.
with people. How to work with
those
people.
things,
yeah,
you know.
But
and that's what I mean. Like,
sorry.
that's what makes it so interesting. It's okay. It's okay.
Hey, you should send them your film. He just shot a film.
Oh, I'd love to
You
see
should
it,
give him
yeah.
some constructive feedback.
I'll
What's
give you
it
a wee
on?
synopsis of it here quickly. It's basically, the movie is called Blood Sky, and it's a psychological horror, and it's about a man who has PTSD, survivor's guilt, and trauma from a car accident where he lost his older brother, and he has hallucinations and nightmares of the events that torture him, and he struggles to sleep because of this kind of stuff. And his friend, wanting to cheer him up, calls him out to a camping trip, but we don't know.
Then the plot happens
don't
from
tell
there.
us. Don't tell us anymore.
So I'm just going to leave it
As long
at
as
that.
it's
It's a
wrong.
wee
As long as it's
synopsis.
wrong.
Well, because of A-level and all that, we've been limited this year to 7-minute long
All right,
movie and all,
okay.
You can
because
say a lot
we
in
don't have a lot of
7
time.
minutes.
So
You
yeah,
can say a lot in 7 minutes.
yeah, 7 minutes is a lot.
There was a guy worked for us. When I say worked for us, I mean he was a Paul George.
Paul,
Nice
Paul,
fella. A lovely fella. If you ever see a wee film, no budget special effects makeup, what he suffered under us, to make the film is unbelievable. He's had a medal. But through that, he was able to take this along and show it to people. He's now a regular extra and helper on all the big productions down in the Titanic Quarter.
Nice.
I mean, he's a regular. He's known in the industry. That's what I'm saying. Everybody knows him. He's well known, and to get your name well known is a big.
That's what I
major
mean.
step,
Like with this kind of stuff, you want to be able to build your skills to the point where you make yourself out known and all that. Get those kind of contacts from small people to go bigger and bigger and bigger, and just make yourself well known via just building up your skills to the best it possibly can. And once again, that's what I'm trying to aim up for. Like slowly getting up there and up there and up there.
So what about you guys? Your working relationship being twin brothers.
There's never any problem because we have the same tastes and the same
Absolutely.
same ambitions and the same idea and the same background.
Same tastes
There's
and
never
values.
a problem, As long as Noel did what I told him. There's no problem.
But it's interesting, you've got like, two sides of the one coin, two sides of the brain. It seems that you've complemented each other.
I think so, yeah. We both like doo-wop music. We're very heavily into doo-wop. All old 50s music. And I didn't know anybody else likes the sort of music we like all the two of us. Very, very few people would listen to our music, but it's fantastic stuff. Have you heard the doo-wop music?
I assume it's the do-up, do-up, do-up.
Oh, a wee bit. It's close harmony stuff, with but 5 different levels of music,
Give me like 1 to 3 tracks that we'll listen to.
Well,
In the Still of the Night,
5 statins.
Yeah, listen to it. You'll love it. You'll love it.
Now, I'll tell you a British group, fairly recently, you mightn't even have heard of them, but they were approaching doo-wop, and they could have been very, very good. Do you remember the Rubettes, Sugar Baby Love?
That's 1975.
That's still too.
I can't remember that actually. Now you say it.
That to me, that to me is ultra modern.
Let me give you another one. Bells in the Chapel by Lonnie and the Crisis. Well, you love it. Bells in the Chapel.
But where would Mackie hear that?
On YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
Bells in the Chapel. Lonnie and the Crisis. LONNIE.
Gotcha.
You'll love that. You'll probably throw that in the bin as soon as we go,
I tell you, the only reason I'm not writing down the artist name is because I know I'll just get it with Bells in the Chapel. We'll listen to this whenever we're cleaning the studio later.
This could be a turning point in your life. When you hear this music.
I think so. I think this conversation
might never be the
will be a
same.
milestone
It
moment.
might never be the same again. No, well, what you were saying about what Daniel was saying, you see, when we were making these films, there was no cinema support groups as like there is now, and there were no films being made here. And what we were doing was something fairly unique. And if people saw us with a camera, they'd slow down and stop. Nowadays, there's cameras and phones and cameras everywhere. Nobody a bat an eyelid.
It was easier actually because when we were exceptional, so if some group wanted an evening, they would get us along to show our films because people would go out to watch films. I mean, nowadays, if you said to somebody nowadays, will you come and watch my homemade films? I'd say, catch yourself on. I mean, I have thousands of them at home,
Well, we actually could fill a hall with film shows,
We used to have fill a hall,
Fill a hall, people coming to see them. You couldn't do, you wouldn't. You're
Nobody
looking to
wants
get
to see
more.
them. Nobody
No.
wants to see them.
Early adopters, that's definitely.
But
what
you see,
guys were.
when we were making films, people were helpful. But nowadays, if you got your camera, you're just a nuisance, somebody else, you're a nuisance. Whereas because we were doing something fairly unique at the time, we got a lot of support, and we would borrow things. Another funny story, we borrowed these costumes from a drama group in Bangor, John Knight, you see, and we made this turn of the century costume piece, The Tomb of Frankenstein it was called. And it was nearly half an hour long, but it was all black and white. People used to say our films were black and white with no white. That was how they were described. But John came over to see the finished film, John Knight, the guy who loaned us the costumes. And he sat and watched the film right through in silence, you see. And then we switched the projector off to sort of a silence. And we were waiting to hear, that was a fantastic bit of work. We were waiting. You know what he said? Oh, my poor costumes. My poor costumes.
Did you get them covered and stuff?
The guy was being murdered in the ground and mud and everything.
When they got to, oh, my poor costumes.
That was all he said about the whole film.
It was one of the best reviews we ever had on the film.
Guys, thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate
It's
it.
been a pleasure.
Where can people find the No Budget Special Effects disc?
Our phone number, I don't mind give our phone numbers out. it's all done ad hoc. It's not no business ring. Just
Yeah.
everything is up already
Do you
organised.
have it online anywhere, or is it actual discs?
Just they're actual discs, actual DVDs.
Cool.
There'd be
Well,
a,
then-
a minimum charge would be £300 each film.
Mate, they're vintage. They're worth a lot now. The value will increase.
No, I
What's your
think
film on, by the way, Daniel?
My film.
What's it on? How do you have you in DVD?
I'll email it to you.
Yeah, he can
email
email it to you.
DVD.
But it was all recorded on my iPhone and all that. That's what I had to use for the recording and all because it's just the quality on it.
If you
does
put in
well.
a DVD, we can run it. You know, see, even DVDs now are almost passe, aren't they?
Yeah.
DVDs
They are,
are
yeah.
on the way
Yeah.
out. It's a shame.
See
all
all
that
all the
downloads.
computers we have in this room. Not one of them has a CD drive in them.
That's a shame. Honestly, I can't stand it.
Yeah, it's all about the downloads now, like downloading different content. And that's
Great. Well, if anyone wants to check out the discs, get in touch and I'll connect you with the Spence brothers.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you so much for listening, and really hope you have a great rest of your day. Spence brothers, Noel and Roy, thank you so much for today. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Enjoyed
welcome.
it. Enjoyed it.
Rosca and Mark, appreciate you as well.
It's been a lot of fun.
See you, everybody. Bye bye.
Well done. Good work. Good work.
That was good crack.